Hey guys, and welcome to introduction for Kevin Ward, because this is a special one. Everybody knows Kevin on LinkedIn. He's going to laugh and be humble and act like they don't, but he's just been an amazing support for Coaching Hub, and he's actually one of our category leads that focuses on the leadership category, which means that he oversees all of our leadership coaches and helps to groom them and point them in the right direction to ensure that they're upholding the vision that Coaching Hubs has for leadership, which he obviously helped to create. So Kevin, say what's up, man.
Hi, Anton. So glad to be here and so glad to be part of getting Coaching Hub going, and looking forward to the excitement of providing coaching, making available for a lot of people in a quality way, and just excited.
You come from heart, man. That's one of my favorite things about you is that you always come from heart. You just show so much care for all your clients and potential clients and just anybody that wants to learn. And, I'm sure you'll dive into your education background, but let's just dive straight into what's your favorite tip to tell to your clients?
Um, Leadership is about servant leadership. That's the key thing. Leadership based on the idea of I'm in charge or authority is just not the place to go. You can be there, but more and more when you do that, if you do that, you're going to end up being the stereotypical boss, and it's not a pretty thing. And the bigger challenge is that you're going to find it harder and harder to work with people, keep them around, and keep them motivated if you're approaching it as a big authority. And so servant leadership is the way to approach it. And it doesn't mean that you can't be a manager, don't need to be a manager. It just means when it comes to people, you've got to approach it and be a servant leader.
I love that, man. And that's something that I've seen in so many different places. The most successful leaders approach it from that standpoint. Whether it was in the military, they leaders eat last. You let your people go first, take care of your, front line first, then the leadership gets to go. I've seen it in church with religion, Christ setting the example, which of course we know is the greatest form
Right.
of servant leadership you'll ever run into. And I love that, man. That's such a great advice. And it's common, but it's not, I don't think it's as understood as it needs to be in application. I think it's easy to say, but it's not easy to do.
Right. A lot of people don't grasp it. They know the words, obviously, it's not complicated words, but they don't grasp the concept because I think what happens is we're assigned as managers, supervisors, any of a number of titles, and the primary focus is still based on management thought and processes common to my generation. And they worked for my generation, but they're not working now. And they're not going to work now. And we can complain, we can say it's not fair, shouldn't be, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. The reality is we've got a current situation, and we, as I've told you before, we got to manage things. We still have to keep the data and the numbers and all that. But when it comes to our people, we cannot be managing people anymore. We've got to lead people. And the funny thing is, as you've noted, servant leaders have been around a long time. And we, even for my generation, we celebrated leaders under the title of coaches, even though we didn't use the principle in business. We celebrated it in sports and talk about what a great leader he is and motivator. And so now it's time to take those same principles and overlay it in the business world and get to a point where we're managing things and leading people.
That's
That's
such a
where we
great
got to
point,
get.
how business is just not caught up with science. It's not caught up with reality. And people like you are doing a great job of bringing it forth. So my next question for you is, how did you become a coach consultant? You're kind of a hybrid. Is it part of who you are, or is that just something in a journey of your life that brought you there?
It's both, actually. It is part of my wiring. I have understood my, as I like to tell people, find your design, passion, purpose. And I have come to terms with that for myself. And part of that design is to step into the role of being a leader, a servant leader, when it's necessary. Now, I do have to say that I am equally willing and comfortable to be a follower. And so if somebody's already in the lead role, I'm more than happy to step in and say, tell me what I can do for the good of the group, good of the team. And I'm okay with doing that. In fact, there are times that I prefer that because, one, it gives me perspective. Second of all, if you're doing leadership right, it's not always easy. And so it's nice to get to coast a little bit and be more on the follower side. Now, again, that doesn't mean followers coast. It just means that it's a little less responsibility than being in a leadership role in terms of dealing with people. And so I come it naturally. I've trained extensively. I have a number of certifications related, and I am what I term as a student of people. And part of being a leader is understanding people. So I've had to learn people and apply the principles of people in a lot of different situations, and anywhere from being owner of a business to being a school teacher to being a member of different association boards to being president of said boards, and just having to learn how to apply those principles in a lot of settings. And that's why I'm very passionate that the principles that I approach in leadership, they fit any situation. Now, when you get into some situations like C-suite, higher areas, there's some additional pieces that will be needed, but the core principles fit from the frontline manager, or as I like to say, the leader of one, ourselves. Those core principles start there, and then you build on them based on the levels of responsibility that you have and so on. And so I've got the training, but I've also have some wiring for it too.
I love it, man. So what do you focus on specifically as a coach consultant within leadership, and what's a high level view of your process?
Well, 3 steps, high level. First, I have to start with awareness, and that involves what is leadership about, but also where my client is in that process. Because at the end of the day, I like to assess, and there's no need for me to tell somebody about something they already know about. Don't waste their time. And then once we've gotten the awareness piece, the understanding, and that's kind of where we are, then we can start mapping out where we're going to go. And the first step in that process is to look at training or teaching to gain some understanding. You know, what are the principles? What are the concepts? So we build that in there, start talking about how they work and what they are. And then the last step is where I really move into more directly the coaching role. And, you know, we all need somebody at times come alongside, say, yeah, I get this, but I just not quite getting the process of application. And so I need somebody to walk through with me at least long enough to where I can develop some new habits and make some changes, and then become successful with it. Then my role as a coach goes by the wayside. And so that's my process. And I start from the beginning with the end in mind, that I want to work myself out of a job as quickly as possible, because I don't want to waste people's time nor their money, as much as I like to earn some income with everybody, but that's not my priority. My priority is to build people and do it through leader follower.
I love that, man. And speaking of the end in mind, right, the process you just described, that's the ship that carries your clients from point A to point B. What is the ultimate destination for your client, and how do you know that they kind of got there?
One thing is, to me, if I get someone to the point of being an effective leader, they are confident and comfortable within their own space, with their own person. Because you cannot effectively be a leader and not be confident and comfortable with who you are. It's based on a principle. And so if I can start seeing that, at a minimum, I know they've got the foundation necessary to build on, even by themselves, generally at that point. And so getting them to a point where they're okay with themselves, then they can be okay with other people, which is a big part of servant leadership. The kind of the antithesis there is, if I'm always trying to prove myself, if I'm always trying to be better than members of my team because I'm not sure, I am not confident, then I can never be an effective servant leader or leader of any kind, because then I'm competing with my team rather than leading them.
I think that's such an important piece that I've missed often as a leader. I felt that when I was a young leader, I had to have all the answers. I had to know everything. And if I didn't know it, I had to hide that I didn't know it, because showing weakness to my team was a bad thing, versus understanding that my team I built around myself to hold me up just as much as I hold them up. And,
Right.
it makes, listening to you talk, it reminds me of like military. I know you can relate. But I think the end result, knowing you, is for a leader to be able to take their chevrons off and act and feel just as impactful and as, create as much value for their team as they do with them on. They don't need them anymore. And I think that's what you do a great job with, if I put words in your mouth. So who's your ideal client, man? Last question. What kind of client, do you like working for? How do you know that they're ready to work with you?
Well, if I'm working with them individually, there's a limit of capacity. I don't mind if it's an individual or smaller companies that have just targeted need. The nice thing about being involved with Coaching Hub, though, is if we get a situation where the requirements for more people, nice thing about Coaching Hub, we pull together a team of more leadership coaches or an assortment of other approaches depending on the need. But my ideal client conceptually is somebody that's really ready to learn and understands that something has to change, or they wouldn't be coming to me. They come to me and say, this is not working, that's not working, help me fix it. And then I say, are you willing to do what it takes to fix it? If you're not, I don't mind billing you, but at the end of the day, there's got to be at least some level of teachability and some recognition that the need is real and that you can't just keep doing the same thing hoping to change outcomes, because we know that that's just the definition of insanity.
Mm-hmm. And this is what you just said, so profound, and why you're one of my favorite people. It's not just about taking money on the front end from the client. We as coaches, we as consultants, we're responsible for the back end. So if they're not ready to change, we shouldn't take them on. We should probably give them some guidance.
Right.
Say, here's what I need you to think about for the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever it may be. And then when you break through this, come see me. I'm going to be here. And that's what I think a lot of people don't get in coaching and consulting is they celebrate taking the money on the front end. Great, I made a sale. I'm like, but what's going to happen after that? What's going to come out on the back end? And if they don't see results, it's going to look bad on you. It's not on them.
Sure.
You said yes. You said, I will help you, knowing that they weren't ready to change. So that's why you're such a special, coach and consultant in my book. What's a great way for people to connect with you if they wanted to reach out to you for a conversation around coaching and consulting?
Well, an obvious one's LinkedIn. I'm very reachable, direct message. The other is my email address, which is WKW Consulting LLC. WKW is my initials, consulting and LLC @gmail.com. And so generally, if you can get me at one or the other of those, and when appropriate and as needed, I'm happy to share phone numbers at that point. But for now, you'll get me there. In fact, generally somebody emails me, and if they haven't heard back within 24 hours or thereabout, something's wrong, send me another one, because I try really hard to respect people's efforts and get back to them as quickly as practical.
And I know High Tech Redneck is a little bit on Instagram too. Like you're not just LinkedIn or professional. You play around with the as well.
Oh yeah, I have. And truth be known, let's see. Facebook, I'm out there. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter.
You're tweeting too, man? Wow, you are a high-tech redneck. I don't even tweet.
I tell you. And
right,
now,
thanks so much for taking the time and kind of showcasing your personality, because I know that it's important for clients to have a personality match, not just a knowledge match, and understand your system. So
sure.